One of the things, and you and I have just we keep having conversations about it because obviously I'm passionate about digital accessibility
Mm,
and you're passionate about cybersecurity. There's
yes.
an interconnection there, isn't there?
Oh, massively. It's so many of the systems that exist nowadays on like you cannot live without the internet nowadays. You
Yeah.
can, but life's going to become really difficult and really slow. But everything nowadays, it's so interconnected and it's so dependent upon being able to access and use technology appropriately and securely. And when you look at how many of these systems are configured online, even looking at, say, bill payment portals for your power, your water, your gas, your phone, they're not necessarily easy to navigate from a vision impairment, hearing impairment,
Mhm.
processing impairment. That simple design makes it harder to participate in day-to-day life.